you grow your own food? Is it to put healthy food on your family's plates? Well, one of the ways to do this is, yes, grow your own food, but also meal planning. We need to have a plan for what we want to eat so then we know what we want to grow. So today in this episode, we're going to be talking about the benefits of meal planning and how a meal plan can help you on your growing journey. You may be surprised. Let's get growing. Hello, and welcome to the Pray Just Plant podcast, the show that talks about growing a garden, a homestead, a healthy family, and most importantly, growing closer to God. I'm your host, Crystal Media, owner of the Red Ridge Farm Homestead, where our mission is to help women of faith find the courage to grow healthy food for their family while building a closer relationship with our Lord and Savior. If that's you. Don't let the world hold you back. Pray Just Plant. Welcome to the Pray Just Plant podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Media, and today we're going to be talking about meal planning. Now, as a grower, I see myself as a grower in the garden, right? I grow lots of vegetables and I move my meat chickens twice a day and I take care of my dairy goats. I milk my dairy goats and I do all of these things as a grower. But why do I do them? It's so that I can put healthy food on my family's table. And one of the easiest ways to plan or figure out what you're going to put on your family's table is to have a meal plan. A meal plan is going to guide you in making those decisions, one, about what you choose to provide for your family for supper every night or for breakfast or for lunch. And that itself ties into what you want to grow. I have always seen, for years and years, I've always seen that growing starts with a garden. Growing starts with a seed. But does it? Does not growing start, if your main goal, right, is to grow healthy food for your family to eat? Doesn't that mean that growing should start at the table? Growing should start with the food you want to provide your family. If you want to provide fresh green beans, then you have green beans on your meal plan. Then you go work backwards. Okay, I have green beans on my meal plan. I need to have this many green beans to harvest and so that I have green beans throughout the year. So this is how many green beans I'm going to need to plant. As growers, our goal is to provide healthy food for our family. We need to start with the meal. We need to start with the meal plan or what we want to eat. And then we work backwards so then we can grow it to provide it for our tables. So we can put that healthy food on our tables. And a lot of the time, a lot of growers don't think about this. I myself was one of those people. I said, I want to grow my own food. I tilled up my garden. I raised the animals. I did all of those things and I'd get everything in my larder. But what then? Well, some of the broccoli just sat in the freezer and sat on the shelves because my kids didn't like broccoli. I did, but I was the only one eating it. Corn, on the other hand, we went through a lot of it. So as a grower, that's where I should have started. I should have started with what my family likes to eat and then worked backwards to figure out what I should grow. My middle son has moved into loving chicken. Next year, I see that we're going to have to raise more chicken if I want to provide healthy chicken for him. So those are the things that set us on our growing path, the food we intend to eat. So what better to know and to work towards is a meal plan. That's just one benefit right there. And today we're going to be talking about a few more benefits of how a meal plan can help you as a grower. Sometimes we always look at the opposite of how a meal plan can help us organize our day, or a meal plan can save us some money. And we're going to talk about those different benefits too. But as a grower, I think the number one thing a meal plan can do for you is it can give you that list of what you need to grow. It can tell you how much of that you need to grow. If I'm the only one that eats broccoli in my house, then I don't need to grow a lot of broccoli. Or maybe that's something that I outsource. But if we eat a lot of corn and a lot of green beans and potatoes, we are a potato-loving family. So that is what I should be growing in my garden. Rows and rows of them. Now, make sure you avoid monoculture, but yes, that's what you need to be growing. So meal plan is our finish line. As growers, that's our finish line. So we need something, meal plan, whatever you want to call it, but something that tells you what you need to grow. And that starts with what you want to eat. So let's get into more benefits of a meal plan. It's going to save you time. Why is it going to save you time? Well, preparing food takes time. You know as a grower that not only does preparing food take time, growing food takes time, but there's a lot into preparing food. We have to wash it. We have to cook it. We have to cook it in some way that tastes good. So we got to look for recipes, and we've got to clean up afterwards. Also, us as growers, we have the growing side of it, but you also have the shopping. If you can't grow all the things that you want to eat, say pineapple, oranges, or cheese. Yes, I have a dairy. Yes, I have dairy goats, but I don't make my own cheese, so I have to go and purchase that. But that's all part of preparing food for our family. We just also add the growing side. So having a meal plan is going to save you time because one, in that moment, in that heat of the moment at 5:30 at night, you're going to know exactly what you want to cook and you're not staring at an empty skillet. And that's a different benefit that we're going to get to. When it comes to that moment of when you need to cook, you already know what's going on. You may have already gotten what you needed out of the freezer that morning because you had it on your list of what you're going to get out. You're not sitting there wondering what you need to do and then you don't get it out, and then that adds into time into the preparingness because you have that time of you don't know what you're going to cook. And sometimes that can take 5 minutes to figure it out, or sometimes it can take an hour because you just don't, I don't feel like this and I don't feel like this. I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. So personally, I like to save time by meal planning, and I like to do all my meal planning Sunday because it's that time that I relax. I calmly look at my schedule for the week and I figure out what we're going to have. Now, if you want to learn more about making a meal plan and all the ins and outs, because a meal plan is definitely tied to what we grow and how we grow it and even how we harvest it and how we prepare our harvest. Be sure to check out my book, Planning Beyond the Harvest, my planners, Planning Beyond the Harvest and the Harvest Schedule, that will help you walk through those steps of making a meal plan. I have a few podcast episodes as well that walk you through the steps of making a meal plan. But today we're just talking about the benefits. So saving time. And for me, being a very busy person, saving even minutes is worthwhile because that means I have more time to grow and be in my garden, or I have more time to spend with my family and grow that healthy family, or I have more time to go out and spend with my animals. Or I even have more time to sit around and relax around the table and enjoy a meal with my family because I'm not stressed out about what I'm cooking that night. It's already been figured out. I can just move right into it and I can spend that time preparing relaxed, joyful, and in the moment with my family. The next benefit is spread out your harvest. You are a grower. You have a harvest. You bring a harvest in every fall. Do you want to eat up all your blueberries the first week? No, you don't. You want to spread them out. Well, how do you spread them out? You make a meal plan. A meal plan is going to help you figure out, number one, if you are working back, remember that's our number one benefit. If we have a meal plan and we're working back to know what we grow, that working back is going to help us figure out how to spread out our harvest. If I harvest 20 jars of green beans and I plan on cooking one every other week or every week, then I know I have 20 weeks of green beans. Or if it's every other week, I have 40 weeks of green beans. So that's going to help you figure out how much you're going to need to grow, tying back into benefit number one. But as a mom, as a person putting healthy food in front of your family, you're going to be not only making sure that your harvest is spread out, but you're going to be making sure that your family is getting a very balanced diet. No, you're not eating corn every single day for a vegetable. You're going to be eating corn and green beans and peas and asparagus and broccoli. I don't know what your sides are. Or even with your protein, you're going to be having beef or round steaks. You're going to be having roast here. You're going to have whole chicken here. You're going to have chicken breast here. You're going to have pork one day. You're going to have all these different things, but it's going to spread it out. I have a contention with my son all the time because he loves chicken. He could eat chicken every single meal. To me, that's boring. To me, that's too much chicken right in a row. But to him, that's what he likes. That's what he loves. But I, as a grower, as a person who is also making a meal plan and also thinking about how long I want my harvest to last, I am telling him, no, we've had chicken twice this week. It's time to pick something different. And he'll pick something different. The next week comes around, Mom, can I make such and such chicken? Yes, we can make 2 meals of chicken this week. What do you want it to be? On that Sunday that I'm figuring out my meal plan, he picks his 2 chicken things. That's going to come into another benefit that we're going to be talking about. But spreading out your harvest is important as a grower. We work really hard all season long growing the food that we want to eat. And we want to make sure that that food lasts, as well as we want to make sure that we have a variety. We're giving our family a balanced diet where they're not only eating all of this and all of that at one time, we're spreading it out. We're going to get into some more benefits in just a minute, but now it is time for the tips and tricks segment of this episode, where I share a few bonus tips and tricks I use here at Red Ridge Farm. This week's tip is brought to you by the Planning Beyond the Harvest handbook. This handbook was designed to help you get your harvest onto your family's plates. We grow all this delicious food, and sometimes in the garden planning, we forget about the harvest and beyond the harvest. This workbook will walk you through the 5 steps that I use to get beyond the harvest. You can grab your copy at redridgefarm.org/resources. The tip this week is all about fall garden planning. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what a fall garden plan is. Now, if you want to know exactly what it is, the definition of a fall garden, or even some benefits of a fall garden, be sure to check out the past 2 episodes, the past 2 tips and tricks, where I shared a little bit more about that. Right now, I'm going to give you a quick overview of what the planning part of it entails. When we're planting our spring and summer crops, we focus on that last frost date in the spring. For fall gardening, we're going to focus on the first frost date in the fall. So when we go to planning, we need to come up with a number of weeks or a number of days before that first frost to figure out if we can plant something. If I want a fall crop of tomatoes, then I need to know how long my tomatoes need to be in the ground to reach harvest. And I can pick varieties that are fast growing. So maybe I'm picking a 90-day or a 45-day tomato. Then I can start them inside and have tomatoes to go outside for fall. Because remember, a fall garden is any garden that we are just extending beyond that spring and summer garden. It's succession planting. So I wanted, for quick overview, you need to know your first frost date. You need to know what kind of fruits and vegetables that you need more of. This comes back to that meal planning that we're talking about in this episode. So you're going to need to know those for your plan. And then you need to pick what varieties you're going to plant, or what time you're going to plant. And that's all going to go off from the time that variety of radish is going to need to germinate, that time of radish is going to need to grow till harvest, and that time that you are going to be harvesting that. And you're going to have to make sure all of that fits in. If it's not a cold hardy crop, you're going to have to make sure that fits in before that first frost date. But if you're picking a cold hardy crop like cabbage or broccoli, and I know there's a misnomer here that most fall gardens should include only cold hardy crops, and that's not true. But it is true if you're wanting to go past that first frost date, or you do season extensions. I've had my tomatoes go way into October. That's way past our first frost date, but they were in a greenhouse, so that worked out. So those are just some things you need to be thinking about when you're fall garden planning. You need to know your first frost date. You need to know what varieties you need to add for your meal plan, or add to what you have already been planning to grow. If you're thinking about growing a not cold hardy plant, then you need to have it come to harvest. You need to know your dates and count backwards. So if your harvest date is September 15th, because that's my first frost date, then I need to count backwards 45 days if I'm going to get in some radishes that take 45 days to grow. Or if I'm going to grow some zucchini that takes 60 days to grow, I'm going to count back from that day. And usually the best time to start planting anything is 15 weeks prior to your first frost date. Now, if you want to learn more about fall garden planning, this is something that you have been thinking about and dreaming about adding to your garden, and just learning the ins and outs of planning and succession growing and pulling crops and growing more crops. That's what succession growing is. Be sure to check out my very first Grow With Me growing series. This is where I'm going to take you along with me through 8 weeks of growing, and you are going to come along with me every single week, and we are going to grow a fall garden together. You are going to watch me grow my fall garden, and you're going to follow the exact steps I do to grow your own fall garden step by step. So be sure to check that out, and I will include the link in the description box below. So back to the benefits of meal planning. What is meal planning? Meal planning is essentially what we as growers are aiming for. We are aiming to put good food on our family's plates. And when we know what good food we want to put on their plates, we can work backwards to know what we want to grow. So the next benefit is that we can avoid unhealthy food. And I don't know if this is for everyone, but this is for me, definitely. Because we do live close to town and we do go grocery shopping. And when we have a larder full of food at home, or I know what's on the meal plan, I know what's being cooked for supper, it's easier for me to tell my kids no. It's easier for me to say, no, we're not going to go out to that fast food restaurant. I have a crock pot of stew at home waiting for us. Or no, we're not going to pick up these cookies from the grocery store. I've already planned a dessert for this weekend and I've got all the ingredients at home. We're not going to be doing that. It helps us avoid the unhealthy food because we already have the healthy food waiting for us at home. There's nothing more stressful, at least for myself, nothing more stressful than spending a day in town and then having to come home and figure out what to eat. That's where my meal plan can come in and save me and give me a solution to drive past all those unhealthy places to buy food, because I have food either waiting at home or I know exactly what I'm cooking at home. And I can even plan crockpot meals when I know I'm going to be spending the day in town. It makes it easier to say no when you already have healthy options at home. And not only do you have healthy options sitting on in your cupboard or in your root cellar or in your freezer, but you know what you're going to be doing with them when you get home. So when you're exhausted from the drive into town, and maybe it's just me as an introvert, but going shopping and going to town is one of the most draining things I do in a week. So when I'm coming home, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, and I have always been the one to say, hey, let's pick up a couple frozen pizzas so we can just put them in the oven when we get home. That's going to take 15 minutes. Very little effort for me, but that's unhealthy. If you think about it from a growing point of view, if your point of growing healthy food for your family is that you want to grow the food for yourself, you want to be sure that the food is grown how you want it to be grown, then buying a frozen pizza is not an option. That's prepared food. That's processed food. That's something that you didn't do. Yes, you may be baking it at home. And I'm telling this to myself as much as I'm telling to you because I am weak. I am weak when it comes to coming from the grocery store. I just want to grab those frozen pizzas. I do. And it's a weakness that I have. And I don't know if you have it. If we were to go back to the goals we set for our family, if we're to go back to look at the reason we're growing, does that frozen pizza fit into that goal? Is that frozen pizza what we want to give our kids? Or even ourselves? We got to think about our health too. It's not. So when we have a meal plan, I can put something when I have the energy before I go to town. I can put something in the crock pot and it's even easier than a frozen pizza because all I have to do when I get home, especially if it's stew or a soup or something, all I have to do when I get home is open the crock pot, grab a bowl, grab a spoon, and dish up supper. That's easier than turning on the oven, opening the boxes, opening up the wrapping. Oh my gosh. I wrap those things they're like kid-proof. Getting in the oven, turning on the timer, pulling them out, cutting them, and then, that's still cooking. That's a whole meal. But to come home and all you have to do is grab a bowl or grab a plate and you walk up to the already cooked, done meal, that is going to help you avoid those unhealthy foods. It's going to help you be relaxed even when you're completely drained. I know from experience, but if I have that meal plan, I can even get them on my side. No, we don't need a frozen pizza. No, we're going to have your favorite such and such at home. It's in the refrigerator. All we have to do is put it in the oven when we get home, or it's in the crock pot, or this is what I have. All we got to do is cook it when they get home, and they get excited because they're going home to eat something that tastes better. And I don't know about you, but we have gone lately, past couple of years, we've gone out to eat, and it's just not the same as eating our homegrown food. We look at going out to eat as like this amazing reward of, oh, we're going to go relax and lounge around. And someone else is going to cook for us and it's a big celebration. And then you get the food in front of you and it tastes like cardboard and it's just not as good. I mean, there's probably tons of reasons why it's not as good, but I guess I'm spoiling myself with this homegrown food. Maybe you're doing the same. The next is that we can enjoy more varieties. When we go to the grocery store, or we go to the eating out or any other places that we get food, they have a limited amount of varieties. Take Vidalia onions, for instance. Vidalia onions, my neighbor down the road, she says they are a dream. I personally am not an onion eater, but she says they're like eating candy. She loves them. But can you go to the grocery store and buy Vidalia onions? No, you can't. And you don't want to know why? Because Vidalia onions don't store very well. They are not harder to grow, but they take more energy and they take more handling and more than a commercial grower wants to do. So they just don't grow Vidalia onions. They have their certain varieties. If you go to the grocery store, you have your white onions, your yellow onions, and maybe some purple onions. Those are your three choices. Are any of those good, sweet, delicious Vidalia onions? No, they're not. But as a grower, I can grow Vidalia onions, or if there's a farmer's market that is growing Vidalia onions, or there's where you find them, maybe you find a big bag because this one grower decided to grow some, you're going to be able to get those and use them up before they go bad because you can put them into your meal plan. A meal plan is going to help you enjoy those more varieties because you are going to be able to make a plan for them and they're not going to go to waste. That goes into our next one. We're going to reduce food waste. I don't know about you, but I have yet to figure out how to eat my avocados fast enough before they go to waste. I mean, I get like 3 avocados. I'll have half an avocado for breakfast. It's just so amazing how quickly they go bad. But if I were to figure out in my meal plan different ways to serve avocados. So maybe I want to have a couple of slices of avocado for breakfast. And then for supper, I decide that we're going to have nachos. So I can take that other half of the avocado and make guacamole. Well, I like guacamole. My husband likes guacamole. So I could use more avocados. So having a meal plan is going to help you reduce food waste as well. And when you reduce food waste, you save money. We have to spend money to have food. Even when we grow our own food, we are spending not only money, but we're spending our hard-earned time. And that is priceless. So when we have food go to waste, here's another example, here's another little story. Growing green beans. I know I've talked about green beans before, but when I had my first harvest of green beans, I didn't harvest them at the right time and they were a little starchy. And then thank the Lord, green beans, they'll rebloom and you can get another harvest. So then I learned about harvesting correctly. Then it came to preserving those green beans. Well, I got most of them preserved, but I didn't know exactly how I wanted to preserve them because I didn't have a meal plan that told me how I was going to serve them. So by having a meal plan, I could also tie back into my own growing to make sure that I'm not wasting my harvest. And I'm going to be sharing another episode here this season about the benefits of making a plan for beyond the harvest. And if you want more questions about that, please read my book, Planning Beyond the Harvest ebook. I will put the link in the description below. And also, if you really think this is something that you want to do and make a meal plan, be sure to check out my Planning Beyond the Harvest planner and my harvest schedule planner. They will definitely walk you through the steps of making a meal plan and then working backwards to grow as much food as you need for your family, but it'll help you make sure that your harvest will not go to waste. And I'll include those in the show notes. And in fact, there's a lot of episodes that I have done on this topic because I feel it's the most important part of growing. Even though that's the finish line, isn't our goal as a grower to get to the finish line? We need to be thinking about that finish line. And our finish line is putting that healthy food on our family's plates. And that starts with a meal plan or even just figuring out what you're going to eat. I know the word meal plan can seem daunting, but a meal plan can be as simple as 30 recipes that you love. That's it. and repeating them over and over. I've done that for the past 5 years, and my kids are still not tired of it because 30 days goes in between each meal. So if I have sour cream enchiladas on the 3rd of May and have sour cream enchiladas on June 25th, that's a lot of time in between. And they're just happy to have sour cream enchiladas. So meal planning can be lots of things. So be sure to check out the show notes. And remember, the show notes are where you can dive in deeper. The description is just below this podcast episode where you might read just a little tidbit of what this episode is about. And I might have a few links. But the show notes are where you can go deeper. And I will include more links and things for you to learn more about meal planning and making that plan for Beyond the Harvest in those show notes. So be sure to check them out. So we're going to get back to our couple benefits in just a moment. But right now it is time for the Growing with God segment of this episode, where you and I build that relationship with our Lord by diving into the Bible and reading more about Him. Today we are reading Psalm 73:26. And if you'd like to read along, I'm reading out of the NIV translation. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. This season, in this segment, we're talking about the strength that we can get from our Lord, and that the God Himself is our strength. In this verse, this psalm, and most of the psalms were wrote by David, it talks about my flesh and my heart may fail. When we depend on our wants, when we depend on our whims, those are the things of our heart. Those are things that we think that we need to make us happy, that we need to give us strength. And we also do this on our growing journey, right? I can't grow my own meat chickens till I have this. And I'm not going to even think about doing vertical garden growing in my garden until my garden is this size. Those are all ideas of the flesh and of the heart. And they're going to fail because you are holding yourself back. Now, if you have dreams and you have things in your growing journey that are focused beyond you, beyond what your whims are, and they're focused on God and His strength, He will fill your cup. God is the strength of your heart. And He is the portion that will last forever. When it comes to your growing journey, we always think about, how many portions everyone's going to get. But can you imagine a portion that lasts forever? That's God's strength. And He's ready to fill you up and to help guide you on that growing journey. When we bring the Lord into our heart, when we focus in on Him, those other things are going to fall away because we need to rise above those feelings. When we focus in on nature, a lot of things are just growing to survive. They're just doing the next thing so that they can get through the next day. And when we focus on our flesh, on our hearts, we are doing the next thing to just get through the next day. But when we bring the Lord into our hearts and He strengthens us, we are not just looking at what can happen tomorrow. We are looking at forever. We are looking beyond now. We're looking into the future because He has a plan for you and He has a guide that's going to get you there. We can't just focus on the what ifs. We have to set goals. We have to move forward. But sometimes those goals need strength. Sometimes those goals are going to be beyond ourselves. That's what a growing journey is. We're going to grow every single day. And when we depend on ourselves or our hearts or our flesh or our wants, it may fail. But when we depend on God as our strength to guide us through this growing journey, we will get our portion for forever. I'm going to leave this last little tidbit with you. I'm going to read it again so you remember that through this week. Psalm 73:26. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Back to the benefits of meal planning. As a grower, we need to meal plan. I know it's something that we all want to avoid sometimes, but if the goal the reason why you're growing that food is because you want to provide healthy food for your family, because you want to provide healthy food for yourselves so you can be more healthy and you can be that healthy person that God is asking you to be. It starts with the meal and then it works backwards to the growing. That's the number one benefit. That's the number one reason we need to meal plan. So let's go into the next one. When we meal plan, we can utilize our harvest first, or you can utilize your harvest first. What that means is when you look for recipes or you're deciding what to eat, you don't go to the grocery store to decide. You go downstairs in your larder and you see what you have. You have worked hard to grow those tomatoes, and then even harder to turn those tomatoes into tomato sauce and put them on your shelves. When you go and decide last minute of what you're going to eat, or even pick recipes that doesn't make sense with what you already have, you're not utilizing your harvest. But when you make a meal plan developed, and if you read my book and go through my planners, you will have a meal plan that is developed from what is already in your larder or what you plan to grow and put in your larder, because you're going to be using your harvest first. I go downstairs when I'm making my meal plan for the month or even meal plan for the week. The first thing that I do is I take an inventory. Yes, I inventory everything I have downstairs. I just happen to have all my root cellar and my freezers downstairs, but that's just how my house is set up. But I go to that spot first. I shop from my larder first. I shop from my harvest first. I decide what I'm going to utilize at my house first, from our harvest first. So then I can go and fill in from the grocery store. That's how I've gotten to growing 75% of our food and eating 75% of the food that we grow, because I plan from my harvest first. So I have 45 jars of tomato sauce downstairs. And am I going to go and plan different meals and different recipes that doesn't utilize my spaghetti sauce downstairs? Yeah, there's going to be a couple, but most of them are going to make sure that I'm utilizing that tomato sauce first. So in my monthly meal plan, I'm going to probably figure out 4 meals that are going to be using that first. And then if I have loads and loads of asparagus, I'm going to figure out how to plan it so I'm grabbing that first. Asparagus has to be the same meal every single time? No. Does spaghetti sauce have to be always spaghetti? No. I can use the same sauce to make pizza. I can use the same sauce to make lasagna. I can use the same sauce to make Salisbury steaks. There's tons of things that you can do with very basic pasta sauce. The main point is I shop from my larder first, and a meal plan helps me do that, helps me ensure that my harvest is utilized first so that it doesn't go to waste, which is another benefit that we talked about. The next benefit is, I think this is one of the best parts of meal planning, is that we can get our children involved. I kind of alluded to that in the beginning of this episode, how my son really likes chicken and he picks the recipes. By including our family, by including them in the meal plan, we can include them in the growing journey as well. Carrots are their favorite thing to eat. When we put them on our meal plan, we are, number one, making sure that our kids are getting carrots that they want. But when we grow those carrots, we can bring that child along that loves those carrots along with us. And when we think backwards like that, when we bring all the favorite things to life that our kids enjoy eating, we can bring them along on our growing journey. And I think that's one of the best benefits, besides the going backwards, of a meal plan, is involving our kids, bringing them along with us on our journey. Because not only are we including them in picking what they want to eat, yes, and I know kids can be picky, but we're validating their feelings, their likes and dislikes. We're also encouraging them to join us on our growing journey. My middle son loves to cook. My other 2 sons, they can cook. They tolerate cooking, but it's only because they have learned to cook their favorite meals. My oldest son, he loves spaghetti. Ask him to make spaghetti. He can make spaghetti every night of the week if you want him to. But he can do it from start to finish all by himself. My middle son, he likes cooking a few more things, but he does it now by himself. Yes, these are both teenagers. My youngest son is 12, and we are just starting. What do you think he's enjoying cooking? baking. He loves cooking a lot of desserts. But when we have a meal plan, when we make sure that we are talking to our kids and making sure that what they want to eat is available, or what they want to cook to eat is available for them from our harvest, from our larder, we are including them along the growing journey. And we're also teaching one of the most valuable tools to our kids, and that is how to not only grow, but how to prepare healthy food for themselves and their future family. So I want to thank you for joining me here at the Pray Just Plant podcast. I hope you have gleaned some kind of benefit. I know meal planning can seem very daunting and very something that you may not want to do, but meal planning has so many benefits to it that if done can open up so many things for you. If this is your first time listening to the Pray Just Plant podcast, I want to welcome you to the Red Ridge Farm family of fellow growers. And as always, if you have any questions, go to my website below and contact me, or want to learn more about what we're talking about in this episode, go to the show notes. And if you want to learn even more on your growing journey, be sure to go to my website, www.redridgefarm.org/resources. On that page is all of my free resources that I have designed to help you on your growing journey. There's so many different resources there for you, and it'll connect you right to the show notes of this episode. It'll also connect you to a lot of the blog posts that I've wrote, and all my books that I've wrote, and many of my online courses. So I want to thank you for joining me today in this episode. And as always, don't let the world hold you back. Pray, just plant.